Hello, I'm glad to see you back. Welcome to the next episode of Performance Cafe. And today we're going to be taking a look at the role of innovation when it comes to performance. Around February, March, I did a couple of podcast recordings where my friend Janita van der Kolf from the Risk Review podcast, very good by the way, if ever you want to go and look it up, I'll pop the link into the comments below. Janita interviewed me and we spoke about innovation in organizations. The irony was that when we did the podcast, actually we had no sense of COVID and the impact it was going to have. At that point in time, it had been identified as something. It was in the Chinese, it was really restricted to mainland China. And so it really didn't occur to us that later this whole thing would come back and be quite an interesting topic when we come to think about the way that we work right now during the COVID crisis. The reason I'm bringing this up today is because it's so easy to feel like one doesn't really want to take risks. You don't want to spend more money on resources. You don't want to try anything new. What you want to do is really go back to the basics and get back to a place of safety. And while I really understand where that's coming from, I actually think that that's the worst thing we can do right now. So before I get to how we deal with it right now, in this podcast, we interestingly enough spoke about innovation and its role as a part of the company culture. And we spoke about the fact that a lot like leadership, innovation is somehow conceived to be specific to some people. Only certain people are leaders. You have to be a born leader. And so it's the same with creativity, right? We get told at school at a very young age that you are creative, you are analytical. The problem with that, of course, is that it comes with a value judgment. So it's, you're more creative. Okay, so not so clever is what was actually being communicated as part of the meta communication. Oh, you're analytical. Oh, that meant very clever. That meant going to university or college after school and making your way into the world. So firstly, we have the situation where innovation is seen as, or even creativity, is seen as a personal attribute, and then it is assigned to an individual. So you are born an innovator. What happens is, in our minds, and it's so sad because this happens when we're at school and very often we inculcate those judgments much better than most, we then tag ourselves as that. We tag ourselves as lacking in innovation or lacking in creativity. But it is actually quite unfair. If we think about it, we watch a sculptor take a block of stone and extract a feature from that. That is creativity at its best. But when we watch a mathematician solving an age-old problem, is it any less creative? Yes, there's logic and there's formulas, but how does he create the solution from almost nothingness? Especially when so many people have tried to create the solution before. On the other hand, when we take a look at something like a physicist who's being analytical and following the logic of a physics problem, when we see a musician composing a melody or a tune, they are no less analytical because they know there have to be so many beats and there have to be so much this and there are so many keys and there are so many chords. They are also being analytical. My question is, what do these labels that we attribute to ourselves and that we allow other people to attribute to us, what is their real value? So now, sorry, that was a very long intro. So now to come back to this whole concept of innovation in organizations is we were talking about the fact that actually innovation must be organization-wide. You can't say we've got an innovative marketing department because what's going to happen is the marketing department is going to try and drag everyone forward on crazy new and wonderful ideas and no one else is going to want to tag along, which is just going to be causing friction, causing politics, and wasting money. We can't say that, our finance department can't be creative. Yes, our finance department best not be creative when it comes to the general acceptable accounting practice and whatever the rules are for a company in a particular country. But at the same time, They have to know what is the best technology to get the work done. What is the best process to get the work done? What is new? What is available? And I have, some of you guys would have seen me working with my colleague Renata Jute. If you see how excited she gets about tax, you'll see how much invention, how much creation, how much pure creativity there is in making all of these rules work together, because it's not a process that lacks complexity. So when we were talking about the role of innovation in companies, I said to her, it really is an all-encompassing culture, and everyone must be allowed to innovate, and everyone must be able to come up with new ideas on better ways of doing things. The interesting thing is, in order for innovation to really make an impact in any company, there needs to be space to innovate. And innovate means to create change, to test, and sometimes to fail. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have with innovation, is that we need to trust that the people who are innovating are actually doing it in such a way that even if it fails, they actually were trying their best. So the important point for me here is that we do need trust in companies, because people must feel that if they fail, there will be no knock-on effect to them. And I'm not talking about someone who pitches up at work and never ever does anything right. I'm not talking about someone who never learns the lessons they're meant to learn. I've got a sacred 3-question rule. You can ask me the same question 3 times over. By the 3rd time, if you haven't gotten it, well, then I'm getting the impression you're not learning. You're not taking it in, or there's something massively wrong. But what we need to do is we need to be able to fail forward. So firstly, when we fail, we understand that in failure, we were trying to achieve a goal. We understand why that didn't work, and we use those lessons to try the next thing. That is failing forward. The only real failure that goes nowhere and that's really bad for a company is where there's failure and no one learns anything. There's no sharing of the message around, this is what we've learned and this is how we're going to take it forward. And so this is today why I wanted to talk to you about innovation and performance, is because we are under a lot of pressure with COVID, and there's a lot of pressure to hunker back and go to that which is safe. But actually the best solutions are there to be found once we innovate. And so I'd like to challenge you that you innovate, that you allow the people within your businesses to innovate, and that you allow for some failure to happen, but that you put processes in place that from those failures, learnings can be gleaned. Because the other side of it is, if you keep track of people and the projects they're working on, sometimes we can see the failure that's going to happen and we can stop it before we actually get to the failure. Right? So that's a positive way. So what we do is we allow people to innovate, we watch the process grow, but we help them understand when things are not going to work out before they actually come to the worst end. So again, I hope you've enjoyed this small little insight. As always, it's been great having you at the Performance Cafe. Please, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe to the channel. If you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, please leave a like and leave a comment and tell me if there's anything about performance that you'd like to hear about. I look forward to hearing from you, and see you at the next edition.